right, welcome back, everybody. Nice to see you all. And thank you so much for coming out. I know some of you are Sunday regulars that might not have been coming to the whole weekend course. And don't worry, this session can kind of stand alone. So if you need to leave at 11:30, which is the normal ending time, please feel free to. I'll try and have a natural quick break somewhere around that time. But if you've got things to do and people to see, off you go. No worries. So we're going to start with the Heart Sutra. And when we get to the mantra of the Heart Sutra, we'll pause and do a short meditation, then finish with the rest of our motivation prayers and into the session. So if you want to get yourself prepared for meditating and recitation, settling your posture, settling your mind. Together, I prostrate to the Arya Triple Gem. Thus did I hear at one time. The Bhagawan was dwelling on mass of Vulture's Mountain in Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagawan was absorbed in the concentrations on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara: how should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra: Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like all phenomena, are emptiness without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional fact, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomena. There is no I element, and so on, up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly, completely awake to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared. Tayata om gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhi soha. And focusing specifically on the 5 skandhas, the 5 aggregates, thinking form is empty, emptiness is form, discrimination is empty, emptiness is discrimination, emptiness is feeling, feeling is emptiness. Compositional factors are empty, emptiness is compositional factors. Consciousness is empty, emptiness is consciousness. Like the wave is water, and water is the wave. Lacks inherent existence because dependent, dependent because empty. Every aspect that I attribute to self, every piece that feels like identity, merely labeled by the mind on the collection of aggregates, which all dependently arise. There is no self in addition to that, though it seems to be. There is a self, but only that which is merely labeled by the mind on these collection of aggregates, all of which are also merely labeled by the mind on their collections. The duality we feel, the separation we perceive is illusory. There is infinite interconnectedness, spaciousness of infinite possibilities. The absence is more totality and wholeness, not nihilism, not nothing. Continuing. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagawan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagawan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandhavas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagawan. Sangye chudon sogi chunam la janchu badu dani kapsun pia dagi jinzum gi pe sonam gi rola benjia sangye drupa sho sangye chudon sogi chunam la janchu badu dani kapsun pia dagi chunyan gi pe sonam gi Rola benchia sange drupa sho sange chudon sogi chunam la janchu badu dani gabsuji dagi junyan gi be sonam gi rola benchia sange drupa sho. Okay. So, we've been talking about deepening and developing our meditation practice the last day and a half or so. And when we're doing something like the Heart Sutra, it's one of these mainstays that comes up in class and possibly is something that you have in your daily practice. And its potential for power and its potential for development is always there for us, but not if we're just kind of going through it paying lip service. So if you can make a point for these mainstays that you weave into your practice to zoom in on a component and really ask deep questions about it analytically and not just kind of rattle it off, it's going to have more impact. Now, something as profound as the Heart Sutra has impact even if you do just rattle through it, right? But it could be more, it could be deeper. And also, you could start to flesh out where is there the doubt that is the very next step is wisdom. You know, that doubt where it's like you're right onto it. You're confused, you're not sure, but the very next step is a type of wisdom. So don't fear doubt, encourage doubt, but not the type of doubt that spins and spins, right? If you're just kind of in a loop, a repetitive loop of what if, what if, what if, no, not that one, but the I'm not sure here, let's investigate. You know, it's a lot more strategic. Sometimes we can have an existential crisis around a practice like the Heart Sutra. It kind of invites all sorts of inquiry into the nature of self and phenomena, which has an impact on your life as it's supposed to. But sometimes that impact on your life is troubling, right? And you're like, wait, so then what do I hang on to? How do I act? How does life work? And if you can bring the quality of kind of childlike curiosity to the question, as opposed to panic, right? That needs to like fix it and find it and solve it. It's like, you're fine. You know, life. Life is important to have love. Life is important to have a sense of, I don't know, civic responsibility. I don't know. The core values you've had your whole life are fine. Don't worry about it. And there's more to the story. How intriguing. Not, okay. And in meditation, if you get a little bit of a, who am I? That's good. That one's good. Just don't do it when you're walking around, right? When you're walking around, be like curious, childlike, intrigued. Let's investigate. Let's ask big questions. When you're on your meditation cushion and you're doing an analysis of the self and you feel some fear, sometimes that's a good sign that the ego is at risk of annihilation. So in that case, steady on, keep going. Yeah. But not if you're teetering on the edge of nihilism. Too far, come back, reel it in, right? So if you feel like you're teetering on the edge of the abyss and now are at risk of falling in, obviously that is not the middle way, and snap out of it. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. That's the disclaimer of the day. All right. So what I thought we would do for this session is do a practice that is kind of all the parts are included. And just kind of as a reminder that sometimes when we're trying to build our daily practice or create our daily practice or refresh our daily practice, it can get a little bit Frankenstein, right? We're like patching things together. Maybe a quilt is better. Quilt is better than Frankenstein. Better analogy. A beautiful patchwork quilt. But in any case, it's a little haphazard, right? It's a little, choppy, changey. And sometimes we can just use a manual that's already prepared and it's got all the pieces we need. And the FPMT Education Department has hundreds of such texts. So rather than kind of Frankensteining or patchwork quilting your practice together, sometimes it's useful to just drill down into one because all the pieces are there. So the one I'm going to use is called Ever-Flowing Nectar of Bodhicitta. Does anyone know this practice? Yep, a couple of you. It's a practice that combines deity yoga appropriate for anyone, whether you have empowerments or not, together with Lojong, thought transformation verses. And it has Lamrim sprinkles, right? Lamrim sprinkles, but it's not kind of officially a Lamrim meditation. It's got all the components you need. And if this was your mainstay, you'd be having a good solid practice. It's also a good example of how to approach a practice if you've got like a lot of sadhanas to do in your daily practice, the way to not overwhelm yourself if you've got a lot of practice commitments. So this kind of practice, it kind of shows the flexibility where some parts you just read and connect, read and connect, read and connect at a fairly quick pace, and then pause and zoom in, really give it some real experiential qualities. So we're just going to use this practice as a model of what you could do for whatever your practices are, if you particularly have sadhana practices. And if you don't have any practice commitments, this is a good example of one that might work for you, or a type or a style that might work for you. It's very Tibetan Buddhist. And in all Tibetan Buddhist kind of reading practices that like invite a visualization or invite a mantra or invite analysis, there is always the implied invitation for Shine, even if it's not signposted. Yeah. So, for example, one of the best places to do Shine, single pointed concentration, is towards the end of the practice before the dedication. So you've done the whole practice, you've gotten yourself well oriented for the day, for whatever period of the day you're in, you're really in a good place. And then you dissolve the deity or you relax the analysis. And there's kind of a natural, spacious quality to your mind at that point. And that is a really good time to then meditate on the nature of mind, whether relatively or ultimately, or first one and then the other, because you've done all this good work first and you've kind of naturally settled. So when you release the analysis or you absorb the deity, whatever's happening at your particular practice, there's a really good point to even do just 5 minutes of Shine can be really helpful, and then dedicate as written. Okay, so we'll do it together. And then afterwards, if you have questions or anything specific to your practice that you want to unpack a little bit, we can go there. So back to meditation posture. And I'm going to start with reading out some of the motivation words from Lama Zopa Rinpoche that are built in. And you can look on the screen if you want to, or you can just keep your eyes closed and listen. So back to the body. Balancing and relaxing, grounding your physical experience simply through physical awareness with a compassionate gaze. Be in the body with some sort of quiet affection for this vehicle, even though it's imperfect. It's serving us well. And then contemplate, all sentient beings have been my mother. There is not single one who is not. Moreover, each has been my mother time without number. And each time has been just as kind to me as my present mother. And so you hear Lama Zopa Rinpoche's words, and you might have a reaction or response, remembering your own mother with fondness, remembering your own mother with complicated feelings, unresolved issues, And so allow yourself to have a response to those first few words. And then knowing what you know of the Dharma, you know that he's indicating the teaching that recognizes all sentient beings as having been your mother, in the sense of needing them for survival, especially those first few years, of the kindness of having been given a body. And then you've had parental kindness in some form or other, whether directly from her or from other people. And that type of parental kindness that is less conditional love, that is more pure, is something that all sentient beings have given to you at some point, in some life, probably many, many times. They held you in their arms. They fed you from their own body. They cleaned you and dressed you, and were your first teacher of sound, language, love itself. And Lama Zopa Rinpoche goes on to say, at this very moment, not only are these kind mother sentient beings experiencing great suffering, but they are also constantly running to create the causes for more. There is not even a second during which they can experience a moment's happiness. And then your mind has a response to those words. Maybe immediate agreement, maybe doubt. And so you become curious, what does he mean? That mother sentient beings are constantly running to create more causes for suffering. Sentient beings don't clearly understand karma, cause and effect. So despite wanting happiness, the self-cherishing and self-grasping mind leads them to create more causes for suffering. And he says there's not even a second during which they can experience a moment's happiness. And you think, surely not. And then remember, oh, true, not pure happiness. There's always an edge of discontent, a slightly unsettled feeling, a grasping for contentment to last, a fear of it ending. We take the suffering of change to be happiness. All of our mothers do too. And he says, if a mother's suffering is not alleviated by her own child, who else will do it? So inviting that sense of responsibility and intimate connection, like everyone is family, because they have been so many times. And Rinpoche goes on to say, even though it is up to me alone to bear the burden of eradicating the suffering of all mother sentient beings, at this moment, I'm incapable of relieving the suffering of even one sentient being. Yet if I receive the enlightened holy body, just one ray of its light could ripen the minds of countless sentient beings, leading them to the state of greatest peace. And so we're to conclude that because our kind mothers need us, we need to become enlightened. Therefore, to release all mother sentient beings from suffering and lead them to the sublime happiness of enlightenment, I must attain the exalted state of Buddhahood. The attainment of Buddhahood is not without cause or conditions. Its principal cause is the two bodhicittas. Therefore, I'm going to practice the profound oral teachings on transforming the mind into bodhicitta. And so highlight any one of those concepts that is most effective for sparking your bodhicitta. And visualize at the level of your forehead, at a distance of a body's length in front of you, your root guru manifesting as an inseparable from thousand-armed Avalokiteshvara, standing on a moon disk that rests upon a lotus. So for a moment, shift your analytical mind to visualization. This radiant white being in the space in front. 11 heads, 1,000 arms, an eye in the palm of every hand, seeing every type of suffering, bearing witness to it with infinite compassion. And we offer the 7 limbs together. Reverently, I prostrate to Guru Avalokiteshvara with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. Because of the merits of myself and others, may the 2 bodhicittas ripen, and may I receive the great enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. This ground, anointed with perfumes, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. May the Guru's life be long. May all beings equaling space receive happiness and comfort. May I and all others, without exception, accumulate merit, purify obscurations, and quickly receive enlightenment. Precious Guru, please grant me all realizations of the path, from Guru devotion to the completion of training, the unified Vajra state. Please grant me blessings that my mind will become Dharma, that Dharma will become the path, that the hindrances in the path may not occur, that I may cease all wrong conceptions and receive immediately the 2 precious bodhicittas. Yadam Kunaratna Mandala Kamniyatayampi. And Guru Avalokiteshvara is extremely pleased by your request. Together with the moon disk and lotus, descends to the crown of your head. And so shift the visualization from the space in front to above your crown, facing the same direction as you, stable and present, supporting you, supporting others. Perfect unity and balance of compassionate wisdom. And with awareness of Avalokiteshvara, we then do the first verse. Determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit from all sentient beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I shall hold them most dear at all times. And then you visualize that blissful white nectar purifies all obscurations, especially those that prevent you from holding others most dear, and brings all realizations, especially the loving, compassionate bodhicitta, which holds others most dear. So from Avalokiteshvara's heart, down through the crown of your head, blissful white nectar clearing any blocks to understanding and practicing this verse, and empowering those seeds to practice it effectively. Imagining this blissful white nectar reminds you of all of the teachings you've had on this verse in this life and in past lives. And shift to verse 2. When, in the company of others, I shall always consider myself the lowest of all, and from the depths of my heart hold others dear and supreme. And in response, again, blissful white nectar flows down and purifies all obscurations, especially those that prevent you from considering yourself lowest of all, from holding others dear and supreme. Brings all realizations, especially the loving, compassionate bodhicitta, by which you consider yourself the lowest of all and hold others dear and supreme. Again, that white nectar light, purifying, blessing, and reminding you of all the teachings you've had on this verse, helping you have the skillful application that understands this is a verse that invites you to leave competitiveness, to leave pride and arrogance, but not to become a martyr or a doormat, but strong and empowered, happy for others to stand on your shoulders. That knows you can learn something from anyone. Verse 3. Vigilant, the moment a delusion appears in my mind, endangering myself and others, I shall confront and avert it without delay. And again, blissful white nectar flowing from Avalokiteshvara at your crown, purifying all obscurations, especially those that prevent you from confronting and averting delusions the moment they appear, and brings all realizations, especially the loving, compassionate bodhicitta and the wisdom of shunyata, which automatically extinguishes all delusions. This light heightening your vigilance. Verse 4. Whenever I see beings who are wicked in nature and overwhelmed by violent negative actions and suffering, I shall hold such rare ones dear, as if I had found a precious treasure. And the blissful white nectar purifies all obscurations, especially those that prevent you from holding wicked sentient beings dear. Brings all realizations, especially the loving, compassionate bodhicitta, which holds wicked sentient beings as dear as a precious treasure. It reminds you of these teachings, that there is no sentient being who is inherently wicked, but there are those who have so strongly habituated themselves to negativity that it's their default behavior. Born from such ignorance and suffering, spreading such ignorance and suffering. These ones challenge us in unique ways. Help us explore how conditional our love is. Think that the light helps you understand how precious they are, how vital to our path, how poignant their situation. Verse 5. When, out of envy, others mistreat me with abuse, insults, or the like, I shall accept defeat and offer the victory to others. And shift into the visualization on your own, as per the instructions before. Invite your own analysis from your wisdom and the teachings you've heard. Explain the verse back to yourself. Let it deepen. Verse 6. When someone whom I have benefited and in whom I have great hopes gives me terrible harm, I shall regard that person as my holy guru. And walk yourself through the visualization. Walk yourself through the analysis and connection. The light waking up your wisdom. Can we do this radical reframing? Exploring where you feel connected to it and where you feel resistance to it in your own life, in your own relationships. Verse 7. In short, both directly and indirectly do I offer every happiness and benefit to all my mothers. I shall secretly take upon myself all their harmful actions and suffering. And again, the visualization. And then this verse also invites Tonglen practice. And so for a moment, connect with giving and taking. If you're new to the practice, you can just think on the in-breath, compassion, on the out-breath, love. If you're more familiar, you can go more deeply. Verse 8. Undefiled by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly concerns, may I, by perceiving all phenomena as illusory, be released from the bondage of attachment. And again, the visualization, purifying and blessing. And again, the gentle analysis, waking up your wisdom and connection to these ideas. And completion. Most compassionate one, please extend your holy hand and lead me and all other sentient beings into your blissful, pure realm after this life. Be our virtuous friend forever and quickly lead us to Buddhahood. And think that Guru Avalokiteshvara accepts your request. Sends innumerable nectar rays into your body. All obscurations, native karma, diseases, harm from spirits, instantly purified, and your body becomes as clear as crystal. Then Guru Avalokiteshvara melts into light and absorbs into you, and your body, speech, and mind become inseparably one with Guru Avalokiteshvara's holy body, speech, and mind. And for 3 minutes, meditate on the nature of mind. Single-pointedly, the spacious clarity, not blanking out or spacing out or vaguing out. A bright, clear wakefulness, unconcerned and disinterested with the thoughts that arise in the background. Sky, not the clouds. And then re-invite Avalokiteshvara Chenrezig into that spacious clarity in the space in front of you, facing you. And from his heart, light rays go to all directions, to all sentient beings, ripening their compassion and their wisdom as we recite the mantra. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Om Mani Padme Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. And so feel Avalokiteshvara Chenrezig in the space in front, but release your visualization. And dedicate. May all the suffering and causes of suffering of all sentient beings ripen upon me right now, and may all sentient beings receive all my happiness and virtue. May the precious bodhicitta that is not yet arisen grow, and it has been generated, never degenerate, but increase more and more. May I never be discouraged, even for a moment, from practicing the deeds of the bodhisattvas for the sake of others, by completely renouncing anything done for my own sake, and by engaging in the holy actions of the kind founder, Guru Shakyamuni Buddha. Through these merits, may I quickly attain the state of the great compassionate one, and without exception lead all mother sentient beings who are most high and noble to that enlightened state. Ngewadiya Nududang Lama Sange Drukyane Droa Chingamalupa De Salagupa Shram. Okay. So if you were to do that practice every day, you might do the visualization and the analysis in an extensive way for just like one of the verses, and then the rest do gently in an abbreviated kind of quick way. And it might be that you zoom in on that one verse, do commentaries on that verse, really think deeply about it, and then use that one verse as kind of a touchstone in your life for a few months. And, put a sticky note on your fridge, right? Put a reminder in your phone, something, right? And just kind of come back to it and let it kind of orient your life for a while, and then shift to a different verse, and then do the rest of the verses in an abbreviated way. It can be that some days you're feeling like what you need is support and inspiration. And so you release the analysis and focus more on the mantra and the visualization. So a practice like that is really flexible, and you've got a lot of options available to you. And also some days you might just read it straight through at a gentle pace, gently connecting, and it still has impact. But what we don't want is for the staleness of repetition. We want the repetition to bring depth. So whatever makes sense to you, giving your own kind of learning style and practice style, that's how to approach practices like this. So let's have a 5-minute break, and then let's come back and do another hour. Welcome back, everyone. All right, so so we're waiting for a couple of people to come back in, and it's a Sunday. So, are there any miscellaneous questions or ideas while we wait for the others to gather? Anything random? Yeah, go ahead. Mm, yes. Yes. Oh, interesting. She's talking about the Tonglen practice. I think it's the one on the FPMT website where I zeroed in on animals because it was Animal Welfare Day, and you could zoom in on any of the realms, of course. And will we be doing today? We might. We did a tiny, tiny bit with the verse 7, because verse 7 of the 8 verses of thought transformation is the Tonglen verse. So if we've got time, yeah, we've got time. Yeah, it's a great practice. Absolutely. Yeah, Barry, go ahead.
Um, the
Oh, Dundrapla, can you fix the audio situation? We can't hear you yet, Barry, but I think it's solvable.
okay,
10 seconds. Yeah. Go ahead and try again, Barry.
okay. Thank you.
Success. Yes, success. Go ahead.
Right. Uh, the two-prong question.
Sure.
One, in the practicing of Tibetan Buddhist meditation or practicing, I've experienced in the last 10 months innumerable benefits. Yet at the same time, I'm not 100% in belief that about rebirth. Maybe there is. I'm not disbelieving it because so much is true, but I'm pretending that I believe it as a way of practice or the way of playing a game or something that I get deeply engaged in. And I don't know if this is right. And the second part is this meditation that we just did has, I can't think of anything that's been as moving to me as that, as what we just did. Yet it's daunting to me to imagine practicing it without your voice and the visualization of
Mm.
it. And I guess the third question is how the heck do I get the the meditation, what we just did, the sutra?
Yeah, I mean the quick answer is they put it on the YouTube. You can watch the YouTube
But
anytime.
you did this whole thing on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah.
I know.
Yep, the whole thing will be on YouTube. There's also, because this is a practice that I love a lot and is very beloved by others, on my own personal YouTube channel, there's a lot of variations of the same exact practice, zooming on different verses, emphasizing different aspects. So all of that is recorded and available for you all, free of charge. You know, annoying YouTube plants commercials in, even if your own channel is not monetized, they've decided, haha, we've got people watching stuff, so they will plug in commercials, and that's really obnoxious. But
So I just
still,
do
it's free
YouTube,
service.
your name on YouTube and I find it.
Yes.
Great.
Yes. Yep. And your rebirth question, I think your approach is very sensible, is fake it for a while, because if you adopt the attitude that future lives are possible, you are more ethical. And even if future lives aren't possible, you would have been a nice person the whole life. Right? So there's like no disadvantage in adopting the attitude that there are future lives. And of course, we can't know 100%, 100% until we really understand more about reality and the mind experientially. So leaving it in ambiguity is completely fine. You're just kind of leaving it in this, well, I know many things in my life, this life, have happened that I don't remember. Like what happened breakfast 2 weeks ago? Probably Cheerios, but I don't really remember, right? So the fact that I don't remember my past lives is not enough of a reason not to believe in them, right? There's plenty of things I don't remember just from a few weeks ago, right? So, you're kind of playing with logic and just kind of leaving it in ambiguity. And is there a benefit in adopting the attitude that it's possibly or even probably the case? And the more you study karma, the more it strengthens your feeling of, yeah, I think it really is possible. And if you had weird memories as a child or weird behaviors as a child that didn't correspond with your family, And a lot of us did, even if we don't remember our past lives. We had some worldview that was just out of sync with our parents and they thought we were a weirdo. Like I used to be so in love with ant hills. I loved ant hills. And then, I mean, fun fact, right? And the neighbor across the alley was a kind of a grumpy old man who wanted to pour gasoline down the ant hill all the time to try and destroy them. And I would cry and cry and cry. And my parents would be like, it's just ants. What is wrong with you? And I'd be like, it's their whole town, and I'm like 40 or something. And, like that was like, why? Right. And some kids are like, ant hill, stamp, 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 light it on fire, and they also have Buddha nature, don't worry. But, like we have weird traits sometimes from our childhood that you're like, why was I like that? And, you're like, well, because in the past, right? So, past lives help you understand future lives, and cause and effect helps you understand why all of it might be possible. And seeing cause and effect play out in the natural world is a good way to kind of understand it in a fundamental way. But karma is an extremely hidden phenomena, and we're not really going to get it for quite a while. Really, not until we're a complete Buddha will we see the full spectrum of cause and effect. And that might sound odd, and it might sound odd to say that karma is actually even more hidden than emptiness. But karma, cause and effect, which is how we understand past and future lives, if you think about the story of one simple thing, like the flower on my table, could you get to the beginning of the story of all the components of this flower? Just this one simple thing. And at first you're like, sure, sure, there was a seed and there was ground and there was nutrients and there was sunshine and there was water and there was someone who, when it bloomed, cut it and brought it here to this table and there was this and there was that. But like the story of all the atoms, could you get to the bottom of it? Just this one simple thing? So, of course, your own consciousness, far more complicated. So anyway, play with rebirth a little bit. My very dear friend, Dr. Roger Jackson, wrote a book recently called Rebirth, and it talks about the different ways rebirth came into the Hindu tradition, the Buddhist tradition, all of these kind of Vedic traditions, how we understand rebirth and why. And it's kind of a historical account. So if you're curious about that angle of things, it's a really good book. It's just called Rebirth by Roger Jackson. Yeah. So like that. Thank you, Barry. And that sadhana, just in its written form, you can find on the FPMT website and just download it. And we'll probably link it to this course afterwards anyway. So all of these things are solvable. Erin, and then the woman in the room.
Good morning. Thank you so much.
Morning.
It was just striking to me this time. I'm wondering if you could explain the significance of like receiving the lights.
Hmm. 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 I'm like, which level to start? Um, yeah, it's a good question. I'm not hesitating because it's a bad question. I'm hesitating because it's a great question and which angle to hit it at. Look, like so many things in Tibetan Buddhism, this practice, despite being open to everyone, has many tantric elements. And some of those tantric elements are easy to explain to a common audience, and some of them need people who have empowerments because the potential for confusion is strong, not because we don't think you would get it if it was explained to you. The secrecy in Tantra is about the potential for wrong views and the need for commentary and connection with teachers ongoing. Otherwise, you create a lot of obstacles. Okay, disclaimer. So light is nice. Light is nice. And when you visualize light, it has an impact on your physical nervous system very directly. And it's kind of fascinating to play with that a little bit, especially in dark winter months if you're prone to seasonal affectiveness disorder, right? Like you sit under your full spectrum light bulb, it helps. But what if you just visualize light coming and visualize connection to the sun coming? It often perks you right up, even if there's no sunshine in the area, even if it's a cloudy day. So there's something about our physicality that likes light, right? And most living beings like light, and it's good for them. So what we're doing is kind of taking associations that are kind of built into a human system and relating them to the divine and creating that connection in that way. It makes a feeling of closeness and connection very palpably present and really direct. So there's commentaries about, Dutsi and Dechen and nectar light and all of these kind of things. And that's a more kind of specific conversation to folks who practice Tantra. And so follow up in those contexts. But the short answer is we like light. Light is nice, helps us feel connected to the great beyond. That's the short answer. Yeah. Okay, so a few people are on to wicked nature, and you might have vagued out when I wove in the commentary, which said no one is inherently wicked, but people get habituated to wicked behaviors. Everyone has Buddha nature. No one's a lost cause, right? Like, make sure you weave in the commentary when you hear this, but we say wicked in nature because there are those rare ones that are really badly behaved. Like, there's lots of people who are like a little annoying, right? We are a little annoying sometimes, yes, slightly irritating, but it's rare to find someone who is so habituated to negativity that we would call them evil or wicked. Those are rare. Thank goodness, right? And those ones are not a lost cause, right? Like, Hitler is not a lost cause. It's going to take him a while to become a Buddha. He might be last in line, right? Very possibly. But even he has Buddha nature. That should reassure us, right? Even dung beetles have Buddha nature. That should reassure us. And when we meet these very difficult people, they are incredibly useful for our path. Yeah. When we're just dealing with mildly annoying, irritating people, or people who have done the wrong thing but have lots of good qualities that we can touch into, reconnecting to loving kindness and compassion is a fairly straightforward project if you give it effort. But what about those ones who want to do harm, who seek to do harm, who are calculated in being harmful? Those guys are hard work. Yes? Yeah, and to like feel an open heart towards them, it almost feels like you're agreeing with them. And you're not, but there's this hesitation to open the heart towards really negatively habituated people. We don't want to. They don't deserve it. There's all these kind of issues that we have that block our heart. And that is part of why they are so useful, to really strengthen patience, loving kindness, and compassion, and ask, how do I make it about the being and not the behavior? Because as soon as I make it about the behavior, it's about me. Behaviors I like, behaviors I don't like. Yeah, I've become self-referent, and then people get my love because I like them, not because all beings deserve happiness. Yeah. So these rare ones are incredibly dear because they kind of force that question in a really different way than just like your annoying relative, right? They're precious. So yes, there are no beings who are fundamentally wicked in nature. Yeah. Yeah, other questions? Other thoughts? Yeah, there was one over here. Did you want to ask your question? The lady in green? Thank you, microphone, Dakini.
Thank you. There's a temptation to comment on the nature. Some of this I think is how we translate words. And I wouldn't be surprised if in Tibetan or Sanskrit or that nature is translated at different times in different ways. But the words I wanted to go back to, because I loved what you said about karma even being more hidden than emptiness. And what came to mind was that it's not that it's hidden, but it's obscured, and the obscuration is within us. And so that's where we start, and that's where we work, and that's where we go forward from. But it's not that it's a hidden thing that's from the outside. It's our obscurity. Blah, blah, blah.
Yes, the commentary on Yönten is, yes, it's not hidden from its side. I mean, it's like the two truths, right? Like ultimate truth and relative truth. It sounds like we're talking about outside truths. It's truth for this kind of mind or that kind of mind. Hidden for this kind of mind or hidden for that kind of mind. It's hidden not because of the phenomena, but because of the mind that perceives it. That's quite true. Yeah, that's quite true. Yeah, well said. Yeah, can you pass it back?
Thank you for these teachings. And I realized I have confusion about two bodhicittas. In my sense, I've felt them. I've only felt one. So could you please elaborate on the two bodhicittas?
Relative and ultimate. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Relative bodhicitta is the one that we talk about all the time. The main Mahayana motivation, the main mind with two aspirations, the intention to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. That is relative bodhicitta. Ultimate bodhicitta is that in the mind of someone who has realized emptiness directly. Yeah. So they're same, but not same. Yeah. Good question. Yeah. Other thoughts? Anything about this practice or this approach to practice that you wanted to flesh out more? Yeah, please. Can you pass to Tony back there?
Excuse me. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Venerable, thank you for your teachings. And especially about the wicked. That came up about as strong yesterday as it possibly could for me.
Timing.
I mean, extremely strong. I'm a sutra Dhamma dude, and I really love the Prajna Paramita sutras. And I've written a short verse on my understanding. Would that be appropriate to read or not?
Sure, man. Rock on. Let's do open mic night. I like it. Please.
You know,
Please.
and the Prajnapadamikas are my refuge.
Beautiful.
Truly.
Yeah, beautiful. Please. Yeah, thank you.
This is the view of a poem that I wrote. The poem is called A Glimpse, but this is the view.
Okay.
It's almost like it's there. We can hold it in our hand, but it can't be grasped. Everything we think and believe we are and have ever been, our thoughts, ideas, aspirations, things old and new, past, present, those we love and hate, subatomic particles and universes, you and me, isn't, does not exist in the way we think, perceive, and believe it does. All phenomenal existence is arising and passing away in the same moment. Everything, including ourselves, is in a state of becoming, but never becomes any hyphen thing at all. Nothing can manifest as a solid, independent, isolated phenomenon as a person, place, or thing. Our perceived reality is artificial and insubstantial, like the future that's not here yet. What is it? It's inconceivable. Our Buddha nature, too, is inconceivable. May we all realize the non-duality of emptiness and form in this very instant. Deep bows to Mother Prajna Paramita. I take full responsibility for any defilements of the Mother's teachings in my poem.
That was beautiful. Thank you. That's beautiful. It's really beautiful. Thank you. And, I want to say no notes, but of course, part of me goes, it's got some Chittamatra vibes there in terms of philosophical tenet schools. And I think that experientially, that's a really skillful direction to go. Yeah, the mind-only school. And I think when you're doing these kind of teachings a lot, doing a pivot into poetry or doing a pivot into art or into music really can make it very alive for you in your practice. And so let your creativity connect with these teachings. It's really, really skillful. It's beautiful and very effective. And then if you're thinking about sharing it, the disclaimer that you had at the end is perfect. Yeah. Because of course, a lot of the traditional Buddhist literature that is poetic is from the minds of people who are awakened. And so then if we're trying to kind of bring our own stuff into that genre, it can become complicated, for lack of a better word. And so a disclaimer like that really helps it. And it's moving in the right direction. It's beautiful. So when from your heart you feel these kind of artistic expressions, I think really lean into it while at the same time keeping that humility. And for all of us, I think we can have a different relationship to sharing our relationship to Dharma with others. Some of us are very ready to share our understanding of Dharma with others, and some of us are very hesitant. And that readiness or hesitation usually has little to do with expertise in either direction. Right? There's some people who know so much and are really hesitant to share, and some people who know nothing and really want to, and then every variation in between. And so as the listener, don't take confidence as a criteria for accuracy. Always do your own checking. Always do your own checking. And in terms of source material that I think is really, really useful in this context, How to See Yourself as You Really Are by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. If you're really wanting to do a Prajnaparamita deep dive, Essence of the Heart Sutra and How to See Yourself as You Really Are by His Holiness are so skillfully arranged, because it's like a nice pithy teaching and then some invitation lines for reflection, and then some really beautiful teachings and then some lines for reflection. It's just really elegantly laid out. So those are my two follow-up recommendations in terms of texts on this genre. And then I think, it's useful sometimes to think of, okay, who else is into poetry? Because you're into a poetry mood, right? Sometimes we get into poetry moods. And I don't know about you guys, but like 5 different people on New Year's sent me the jazz rendering of the Prajnaparamita. I'm like, all right, rock on. It is great. And it was just the Heart Sutra, but jazz. Heart Sutra, but jazz. And I'm like, all right, we're cute. Sentient beings are very cute. So whatever works, right? But for me personally, when I go Dharma poetry, I go Dharma Rakshita, Wheel of Sharp Weapons, because I'm a little hardcore. But also they're beautiful. And so I thought maybe I would share with you a couple of these. These are useful as like prompts for analysis, but they're also good as kind of touchstones. So here's one. This one I like very much. So this is verse 120 or 112. And Dharmarakshita says, when musicians are playing beautiful melody, should we examine the sound they are making, we would see that it does not exist by itself. But when we're not making our formal analysis, still there's a beautiful tune to be heard, which is merely a label on notes and on players. That's why lovely music enlightens sad hearts. So do you see the way it weaves back and forth between relative and ultimate? It weaves back and forth between we experience joy when we hear beautiful music, or we experience an uplifted heart when we hear beautiful music, and where is the music? Where is it? Right? Is it the notes? Is it the players? Is it and we were like, oh, it's the combination, obviously. But at what point in the combination does it become music? If it's a solo act, it's not less music. If it's one note, is it not yet music? You're sort of letting yourself understand that at some point you labeled it. It became concrete, and then it comes back to you as solid. But that solidness was never there from its own side. But experience was felt. So when you're kind of dancing with wisdom in these ways, sometimes poetry pivots can be really effective. Yeah, other questions? Or anything about this approach? Yeah, sure. Back to the lady in green, who has a beautiful name, I'm sure, but I'm still getting to know everyone. You can remain nameless.
Back when I first ran into is it the 7 points of mind training that we just did?
Oh, no, that was
No.
8 verses of thought transformation,
8
but
verses
similar
of thought
genre, similar
yes.
genre.
I can remember when Geshe did a class on this many years ago, and I was giving him a ride from out where he was staying here And it was new to me. And I just said, Geshe, this is outrageous.
Yeah.
Because it is. And I think especially to someone who's not encountered it before, or even to those of us who have, or those of us who have much more experience with it, it just continues to be outrageous.
Yeah.
And it's, what I remember from, that ride was, that was why we have the Buddha-dharma and the Sangha in each in their positions to support us and looking at this and feeling that there can be another way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. And Lojong thought transformation, which like the 8 verses that we just did, or the 7-point mind training of Geshe Chakawa, that whole genre, modern folks love it because it's so provocative or outrageous, but that very provocative and outrageousness sometimes stirs us up in ways. And on Friday night, we were talking about spiritual bypassing and the danger of spiritual bypassing. And the remedy to spiritual bypassing is the appropriate application of Lojong, or thought transformation. But it's a big ask, because there's things about these type of verses, you understand the words, and you might even understand the implication kind of intuitively or from your conditioning as a Dharma practitioner. But then you'll get hooked on a line and be like, really, the lowest of all? Surely not the lowest. I mean, I know I'm not that special, but the lowest, and you like have some sort of trigger, right? And your pride will go harumph, right? Or you'll be like, oh, the ones who have betrayed me are my guru? No, my guru is His Holiness the Dalai Lama. My guru is not that bumhead from the 1980s who did that mean thing. Harumph, right? And we might even like know what the teachings are pointing to, but we feel that edge, and that edge of, I don't want to. That's too hard. Don't make me. And then the other part that goes, but I think probably that's a profoundly good idea, and I probably should, but I don't want to. We kind of go back and forth like this. And when we're doing these kind of advanced radical reframing teachings, they are meant to trigger you, right? But it's part of why these are considered advanced teachings, despite them being intellectually fairly easy to grasp. We're not like doing a deep dive into the philosophical tenet schools, except for in verse 8, you could, right? And of course, verse 8 informs all of the other verses, but that's like next level commentary. But anyway, when you're doing this kind of Lojong stuff, what you want to make sure is that you are kind of happy to be provoked, right? You're a little bit happy to be provoked, and you're curious about being provoked. And then when you kind of are in that place, you can ask deeper questions about what would be the benefit of this. And also realizing that Lojong is only a very tiny step away from Tantra. And the reason for this kind of sophisticated thinking is that you start getting into taking the result as the path, adopting the attitude you will have by pretending you have it now. And that is very delicate because it can lead to dissonance, cognitive dissonance, and it can lead to spiritual bypassing. It can lead to all sorts of problematic approaches, which are not the intention of the teachings. But when you nail it, it changes your life. So to say something like, when I'm in the company of others, may I always adopt the attitude of being the lowest of all, even though when you're with your family, you're the one who makes the best mashed potatoes. You're still allowed to say that. You're like, with my family, I am the mashed potato master, and you're like, oh, I'm not the lowest of all. No, what we're saying is adopt the attitude that, because why? What happens if you adopt the attitude of being the lowest of all? What happens in relationship? What happens in your mind? You start listening, right? You start listening deeply, because you're in beginner mode, you're in student mode, you're in learning mode. And then all of the wisdom of the world is now available for you to receive. When you are the highest of all, or when you are the expert of something, you shut down listening, right? Right? Like you might be the mashed potato master, but there's like a whole other way you can do mashed potatoes, and you'll never listen because you're the master, right? And you're like, but what if you add milk? You're like, no, butter only. You know, whatever. What about salt? I don't know. I'm an uncomplicated cook, right? I have a heavily potato-based diet, right? But you know, when you're doing Losang, what you really want to ask is, what is the benefit of adopting this attitude? Not that you are the lowest of all. No one is the lowest of all. There's no such thing as the lowest of all. Everything is contextual. We're not even going there. We're saying, what if you just decide to be that? Not in a doormat way, not in a martyred way, not in a low self-esteem way, but in that kind of cosmic student, yeah, where you stay receptive. And then what happens when you're with people, when you're not needing to be the expert, is there is more chance for connection. And, you know, something about the way we get socialized, you know, particularly people who are socialized male, particularly people who are socialized male and are over 40, is that you weren't taught to listen, and then you don't have as many friends. And then you're sad and alienated and alone because you don't listen to each other. You just take turns being the expert in a competitive way. And I know that's a broad generalization and not always true. And some of my best friends are boomers. And when we're asking ourselves, like, why do we feel like lack of connection? And then we try and chase connection by just keep talking, it doesn't work. But if you were like, be the one down, what if you were to be the lowest of all? Maybe you would listen differently. And then maybe people wouldn't feel in competition with you. They would just feel connection with you. And it doesn't mean you're falsely humble or falsely modest. You still know what you know and be confident in what you know, but there's no need to prove it anymore. There's no need for this positioning anymore. Of course, women do it too. And also there's the like competitive suffering, right? Like who has got the worst health condition or who has the hardest relationships or like whose job is the most annoying. We have competitive suffering, right? Who has suffered the most? And that too is like trying to one up each other in a weird way. Like if we adopt this lowest of all, we just stop playing the game. We can just be with each other and share. And it's such a relief. And your heart can just be open. And if someone needs to be shiny about some subject and the expert of some subject, even if you know more than them, you can just be like, cool, right? And you see His Holiness model this so beautifully because of His Holiness the Dalai Lama has loved Western science and Western psychology and Western math his whole life. He's loved it. He's been studying it the whole time, and incredibly sophisticated psychology and philosophy from the Buddhist perspective, which is very advanced and very nuanced. And then he'll meet with these like neuroscientists, or he'll meet with these quantum physicists who want to tell him something new about a breakthrough that Buddhism articulated thousands of years ago. And they're kind of like, ta-da, science. And he doesn't say, guess what? We already knew that. He doesn't. He doesn't go, here's what Nagarjuna said about this. No, he just says, wonderful. And you hear him say it again and again. He just listens to these experts who think they've found out something new, something that is timeless and unowned. They feel like they've stamped a copyright on it and they're presenting it with all of this, ta-da, and he just goes, wonderful. And he means it. You can feel it. So he's adopting the lowest of all while having divine pride. And that's the balance that we're trying to achieve here, is this absolute confidence and identification with potential, with Buddha nature, not with performance or achievement or expertise. And that kind of confidence can't be dented. Who can dent your potential? It's unformed, right? Who can sort of touch that? No one. And also, how can you be competitive with that? Because everyone has it. Does it make sense? So these provocative statements, they're really meant for you to do a very deep dive into asking, what is the benefit in adopting this attitude? Not, is it true or not? That's not even the issue of that kind of teaching. Yeah, we might go into this whole random tangent of, am I the lowest? Should I be the lowest? Do I need to pretend to be stupid? What? No, that's not even the discussion. right? When someone whom I have benefited and in whom I have great hopes gives me terrible harm, I shall regard that person as my holy guru. Does it mean that you regard that person as your holy guru? No, but you adopt the attitude that they are. It's a subtle distinction. It's a subtle distinction. And that distinction really changes your life because you're no longer the victim of someone who betrayed you. You're the recipient of one of life's deepest lessons. And your connection to the human experience expands exponentially by having been betrayed. Because part of what self-cherishing and self-grasping do is make it sound like you're the only one who has ever suffered this way. Poor you. In fact, most people have. Probably all people have in some life at some point. And so as soon as you realize the universality of suffering, you actually suffer less. It's a great relief. It's the being alone with your pain that compounds the pain. No pain that you have is that unique, even if the details are very specific to you. So it's why support groups work when they shouldn't, right? Support groups shouldn't work. Like if you've just lost your spouse and you go into a grief support group for people who have lost their spouse and you hear everyone else's very poignant story, you should be 10 times as sad after listening to 10 stories. You should, right? And you're not. You're like, oh, I'm not alone with this. Yeah. So really, these kind of thought transformation verses are unbelievably profound, but we might not quite know the mechanisms to use with them, and we might misunderstand them and go the wrong direction just because how we've been conditioned so far. It's not our fault. It's not like a fault of intelligence or logic. It's just we haven't been trained to use Losang correctly yet. So when you're doing these kind of sadhanas like ever-flowing nectar of bodhicitta, when you hit a blockage, right, when the white nectar light flows down from the Buddha of compassion and you're trying to really integrate these first and you feel a no, that is really a place of intriguing exploration. It's not a problem. Just be curious about it. Any other thoughts about this? Yeah.
On the subject of betrayal,
Hmm.
betrayal is really, really hard to take.
Amen.
And no one has betrayed me more than I have betrayed myself,
Yep.
including the very wicked.
Yep.
I'll drop it there.
Yep. That's often the case. And you can also see yourself and your own hypocrisies and inconsistencies and lack of consistency as one of the most profound trainings because it gives you that kind of humility that knows you can really help people, you can really support people, and you can totally be the one that lets them down and is unreliable. And knowing that there is a whole spectrum of potential in your behavior so far helps you de-identify from being the hero or the victim or being the perpetrator or the savior. You know that you have been all of these characters countless times, and it can just lighten up over identification. And yeah, it's epic. It's epic. Barry is asking in the chat, he says, as a lover of Zen poetry, which is very concrete, I wonder why Tibetan poetry is so didactic, perhaps distracting from the artistic experience. I don't know why. I don't know why. I just work here. That's all I got about that one. I know that I have appreciated not being able to understand something at first. You know, and a lot of Dharma students are fairly sharp cookies, right? Like we're fairly smart people. We're drawn to this like very debate philosophical tradition and religion. And we might be the sort of people for whom information has become clear fairly quickly. We're used to getting it. And so for me, it's useful not to get it right away because it opens up another kind of part of my brain that is not used as much to be able to go, wait, what now? Wait, what now? So I find the kind of obtuse nature or obscure nature or didactic nature, very useful because it means I don't rush. Yeah, I don't rush through it and think that I've got it and mark off a checkbox. Love is good, check. You know, it really, it makes me go through it at an experiential pace so that, and it doesn't let my intelligence race too far ahead. And that is very useful for integration for me. But you got to choose, is it useful for you? And if it's not, no worries. We got plenty of other techniques, and the Buddha taught plenty of other techniques. But indeed, it is a little bit like, wait, what now? Right? And that is part of the training tool, but why Tibetans love it particularly, maybe historians would know better. Brenda's asking, is it always Chenrezig in this practice? Could it be other Buddhas, Tara, Medicine Buddha, Vajrasattva? You know, I tend to not reinvent the wheel when sadhanas have been composed by enlightened beings. So while you could substitute a different Buddha for this, and there would be a good argument for it, I always feel like there is blessing in the tradition and the lineage. So if I'm wanting to do more Medicine Buddha practice, I'll find another sadhana that does similar work that uses Medicine Buddha as kind of the hub of that practice, rather than just chopping and changing, because I would prefer blue to white. Because all Buddhas are equal, right? All Buddhas are equal. All Buddhas have equal ability. What's different is their aspect for our sake. And so the answer could be yes, it could be, but I wouldn't mess with it. And yeah, there is something about the lineage of blessings and the lineage of oral traditions that is kind of an unnameable magic in Buddhism. When you connect to the unbroken oral tradition of something, the power of it is more direct. And you may have already experienced this with, say, a teaching that you read first and hadn't had oral teachings of, a book you read first and didn't have oral teachings of, and you liked it and you thought it was cool, but there were bits that just didn't make sense. And then one oral teaching live from a lineage holder, you open up the same book and you're like, oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, I got it. And it just, you got it, the lineage of blessings. So there is something about doing things as written and at the same time making them your own experientially. So you notice the way I went from Lama Zopa says, here are some things we could think about it. Lama Zopa says, here are some things we could think about it. Now pivot, Chenrezig, visualization as written, verse as written. Now what is your relationship to it personally, experientially? So you're not starting with, I'm just going to think these things. You start from the tradition, and then you use that as like your outline or your scaffolding to play. Does that make sense? Yeah. So like that. Okay, what the advice on hearing and working with the 8 verses really resonates. Good. Excellent. Thumbs up. Yeah, any other bits and pieces about this approach or your practice of it with your own sadhanas that might not be this particular one? Like if you're thinking about your own daily practice and getting it more life or more depth, what comes to mind? What questions do you have or new ideas do you have? Like you're thinking about this morning, you got up, you did your practice. What needs more zhuzhing? Sometimes it's, for me, the Dolly Parton song, 9 to 5. Stumble out of bed and wander to the kitchen, pour myself a cup of ambition. Who's hearing it in their head right now, right? There's something about stumble out of bed and just start, and then get it organized, get it deep, get it clear what your motivation is. Sometimes we overthink it and we paralyze ourselves and then we can't do it. It's like we psych ourselves out. So sometimes stumble out of bed and just fall into the practice and then get it organized as the duration of the session goes. Sometimes that can be really useful. If you hit the snooze psychologically or literally, sometimes you psych yourself out. Does that have the ring of truth for somebody? Yeah. Like you might think it's some like character flaw or some lack of discipline that you don't do your practice as well as you want to. It's probably not like that. You probably do want to, and you probably do have discipline. You just haven't figured out how your mind works when it's not as clear, and how to kind of hack your mind when it's not feeling like doing something on the surface, but deeper really does want to. How to not listen to the surface response and just go straight for what you actually care about. Sometimes we try to argue with the surface. Be like, no, 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 it'll be good for you. No, 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 it'll be nice. And then your surface self goes, no, but if you use this time, you could make a more exciting breakfast, right? Or if you use this time, you could sleep in another half hour. Or if you use this time, you could scroll through whatever social media you love. It will take over. So instead of arguing with it, just be like, nah, anyway, and just stumble into practice. Start wiping your water bowls and sensing your water bowls. Start, just kind of plunk yourself down, do a preliminary something, then get up, brush your teeth, do your various things, come back, do a proper session, stuff like that. So sometimes the container is what we haven't given enough attention to. And the practice itself is fine when we actually do it. So sometimes that's the thing, right? The practice might actually be going quite well, but we don't do it as often or as deeply as we want because all of the container of our life is not supporting it. Sometimes a good spring clean does the trick, right? You clean your room, give it a vacuum, fluff your meditation cushion, and suddenly want to sit on it. Stuff like that. Yeah. For me, remembering throughout the day to prioritize my intentions of the Bodhisattva. Yes, that's a good one. Thank you so much. Absolutely. Okay, so let's do our lunch offering prayer. And as I mentioned yesterday, there's a lot of different ways to do food offering prayers and food offering practice, but really making sure that we use the fact that we are ripening good karma by receiving resources and we don't want to drain the tank. So offering your food is a really wonderful way of reinforcing your refuge and really keeping the causes for good resources in the future. And then in terms of that 3-bite practice that I mentioned yesterday, just kind of imagining wherever you're going to be sitting for your food, thinking first bite, may I refrain from negative, harmful actions. Second bite, may I do positive, beneficial actions. Third bite, may I benefit all sentient beings. These are the 3 main core components of the Bodhisattva vow. Some people were asking about the dots on my head. When you're fully ordained in the Taiwanese tradition, they burn those 3 thoughts into your skull after you get fully ordained. So 3 dots for those 3 thoughts. That's not an accident. Yeah. So you're supposed to go, oh, renunciation, oh, dots, oh, 3 types of ethics. That's what you're supposed to do when you rub your head. Fun fact. But for us, you can just think them while you eat and you don't even need them burned into your head. It's nice, yeah? Less painful, right? And when you do a food offering prayer, the one we're going to do is the beautiful chanted traditional one. But when you're by yourself, if you just have something that works, like this came from elements, I'm made of elements, I am connected to the earth, I am connected to the people who made this. Like, it doesn't have to be Buddhist, right? But something that like acknowledges the need and the interdependence related to food. Yeah. It'll help you digest it better. Yeah, it'll make you eat it slower and more enjoyable. And we don't want to take our resources for granted. Okay, so imagining whatever food is going to go into your gob at this point, and it transforming into oceans of uncontaminated wisdom nectar. Yeah, so it starts as vegetables, now it's nectar. And it's nectar you're going to offer to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the representations of your path and your potential. Omai, 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 Lama Sangye Lama Jade Shen Lama Ge Dunte Kungi Jaya Lama De la ma na la Chupabu. Wadubalame Sange Rinpoche, Gyopalame Damchu Rinpoche, Drempalame Gendun Rinpoche, Kyabne Kuncho Sumla Chupabu. Okay, thank you so much. And we'll come back in an hour and a half. Thanks, folks online.